Hello and welcome to Rescue the Heart. Today, we are going to share a new story in the Henry series focusing on Jane. We hope you enjoy. The winter that followed Brayford's recovery proved to be a turning point. It was a time of growth, not only for Henry, who was now trusted with real veterinary duties, but also for Jane, whose quiet competence had begun to bloom in earnest. Life in the Sutton household had settled into a gentle rhythm. Mr. Sutton relied more heavily on Henry as an apprentice, and whenever Henry was home from school, Jane's presence became a constant thread in his days. She still tended the Sutton children with natural tenderness, but it was becoming increasingly clear that her abilities stretched far beyond nannying. Jane had a gift, one that neither she nor Henry recognised at first. It began with herbs. She had always dried lavender and chamomile to help the children sleep, but now she began to experiment with mint poultices for headaches, rosemary rubs for sore limbs, and tansy draughts for stomach colic. One cold evening, when Mr. Sutton was late returning from a farm call, Henry wandered into the kitchen to find Jane sorting herbs into little bundles. He brushed the straw off his sleeves and stepped closer.
Is all that for Mrs. Sutton?
Jane shook her head, continuing her careful work.
For Brayford, mostly, his coat is still dull, and Patch, he's favouring his left leg when he jumps. Mint and comfrey should help.
You know this from reading.
Jane offered a shy, quiet smile.
From watching, and from remembering. The old women in the poor house used herbs all the time. They said it was the only medicine they could afford.
Henry felt a pang of understanding. Jane rarely spoke of her past. It still clung to her like a shadow, but when she did, her words were simple and steady, as though she were sorting through pieces of herself. Her confidence grew quickly after that. The animals adored her, and that much was plain. Patch leaned into her hands as though she were an old friend. Brayford nudged her pockets for apple slices. Even the temperamental ram softened when Jane approached with a mixture of herbs to soothe an infected nick on its leg. Henry watched all this with a growing sense of awe. He could diagnose lameness, bind wounds, and calculate doses, but Jane saw things differently. She noticed the quiet signs, the twitch of an ear, the way an animal breathed, the change in its eating habits. One afternoon, as they stood together, brushing Brayford's rough coat, Henry broke the comfortable silence.
You feel what they feel.
Jane hesitated, her fingers stilling on the donkey's flank.
I don't know about that. I just see when something isn't right.
That's more than most people can, even me.
Jane looked down, her cheeks warming, but she didn't argue. Her true turning point arrived one stormy night. A neighbour's wife went into labour far too early, and the nearest midwife was trapped on the impassable road between Devizes and Potterne. Mrs. Sutton, once a midwife herself, bundled Jane into the cart and hurried into the storm to help. Henry waited anxiously at home, pacing the kitchen until the latch finally lifted near dawn. Mrs. Sutton looked exhausted but triumphant. Jane, pale and trembling, followed her inside.
Is the baby safe?
Mrs. Sutton was quick to assure him the child was alive. She proudly told Henry that she couldn't have done it without Jane, who had held the mother steady through every contraction and knew exactly what herbs to brew for the pain. Mrs. Sutton placed a gentle hand on Jane's shoulder, praising the young woman for having steady hands and a steady heart. Henry stared at Jane with new eyes.
You helped deliver a baby?
Mrs. Sutton did everything important. I just helped.
Despite her modesty, Henry saw the spark in her expression. It was quiet and unsure, but unmistakable. She had found something. From that night on, Jane seemed changed. She continued her duties with the children, but she also sought out books on healing and midwifery. She helped Henry mix drafts for the animals, offering suggestions that often worked better than established recipes. Mr. Sutton, who was not quick with praise, even began letting her observe the gentler veterinary procedures. One evening, as they closed up the barn, Henry turned to her.
Animals and people, you help them both.
Jane shrugged, though a soft smile touched her lips.
Maybe I'm meant for something between the two.
Henry wanted to say he believed in her as much as he believed in his own path toward becoming a veterinary surgeon, but the words stuck in his throat. Instead, he reached down and handed her a bundle of herbs she had dropped earlier. She took it, their fingers gently brushing.
Thank you for picking up those herbs. And thank you, Henry.
They walked back toward the warm light of the Sutton house side by side, each of them carrying a future that was beginning, slowly and delicately, to shape itself. We hope you enjoyed this story. If you did, please consider donating to a worthwhile charity, either ours or one local to you, or volunteering your time to help at a shelter. They often need help. And if you liked this story, then please feel free to like and share. It truly helps us out.